Vijaya Durga Bhavani. Okay. Namaste, Abhiram sir. Somehow, it's wonder, Abhiram sir is always on time before time. Today I do not know. Maybe because it happens to be Sunday, he took little time. Okay, welcome, Abhiram Garu.
Hi, sir.
Hi, good morning. I know
Good morning,
always
sir.
you are before time.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay, it happens. Okay, and I'm asking some questions. I think you have to answer it yourself. Did you ever experience feeling anxious, irritable, depressed at any point of time? Apathy, loss of interest in work, problems in sleeping, fatigue, getting tired, unable to concentrate, muscle tensions or headaches, stomach problem, social withdrawal, not feeling like meeting people, then using alcohol or drugs to cope. Now, if you are going through some of these things, we need to understand that we are experiencing stress, and there is a need for us to know how to manage our stress. Therefore, dear friends, today we are going to talk a little bit on stress management. That one is very important. Let me tell you, world is changing. When there's a change, all of us are likely to face a little bit of conflict. I think these are the two topics I was discussing. When these things they become little acute, or when you hold some of these things too long, I think there's a possibility for us to experience this stress. Okay, we will discuss some of these things. It's not only exciting, but I think we should know it might look exciting, but when you go through this problem, you'll understand, and we should know how to manage this stress. When we talk about stress, there are two important words people they use. Or sometimes we have to ask question, do you think stress is always bad? There are two kinds of stress that we experience. One is called a distress, the other one is called eustress. Distress has got a negative impact, whereas eustress has got a positive impact on all of us. I'm sure I didn't tell you the meaning of stress so far. But one thing we are telling, do not be under the impression stress is always bad. There are some kind of stress which are good, which energize, which have a positive impact. Generally, they are of short term and they can improve our performance, and they believe to be within the coping mechanism. That kind of stress we call it as eustress, eustress. So eustress we mean there is a kind of stress which is good for us. Whereas there is the other extreme of stress we call it as distress. It is unpleasant, often saps our energy, depletes our energy. Sometimes they can be short term, sometimes can be long term, sometimes they decrease our overall performance, and not sometimes we find it difficult to cope with this kind of stress. Sometimes they lead to physical illness, mental fatigue, or emotional depletion. That kind of stress we need to address That kind of stress is called distress. So the essence, do not be under the impression, let us not be under the impression that stress is always bad. There is a kind of stress that is called eustress, that is positive, that will energize, that is good. Whereas there is a kind of stress, we call that one as a distress, that is not good, and we should learn how to manage this distress. Now, when are we experiencing this kind of eustress? What are the situations that we experience? Whenever you get into new projects, you do not know what's going to happen. A little bit of anxiety. And sometimes, a fellow like me, he wants to have physical fitness goals and enters into gym and all these things. We experience, we set goals. We want to reach those goals. You have that eustress. Then sometimes you watch scary movies, excitement, roller coaster. At that time, you have eustress. Then public speaking, my God, people say that is one of the fear people they have. You experience. Oh, the next one I did not tell you. Then the kind of stress people they experience, of course, people like us, only we can talk that experience is something different. I think female, they have to say, giving birth to a child. There's a lot of stress. People say the second birth. When you buy a new house, also you go through it, constructing and doing a lot of things, traveling, visiting new places. Sometimes you have some problems. Then attending a large network events, you have stress. And when you have to change your career, when you have to start afresh after 20 years or after 15 years, along with new people, you are going to have a stress. That kind of stress will be helpful. You call that stress as eustress. Then we are going to talk something that is known as distress. When are you experiencing normally? You are bullied, divorce, breakup, interpersonal problems, conflicts with teammates, death, unable to meet deadlines, parents fighting impact on children, fightings with siblings, family stress, financial problems, bankruptcy, all these things, they lead to stress. That kind of stress, we call it a distress. Okay, yes. The other things, getting fired from job, natural disaster, health problems, sued for wrongdoings, assaulted, abused, then waiting for the results of medical tests, worrying about job restructuring. See, all these things, they lead to a kind of stress we find sometimes it's difficult to manage. The kind of stress we call it as distress. So far, I was talking to you about there is a good stress, there is a bad stress. So therefore, people say whether stress is good or bad, we tell people optimum level of stress is always good. When your stress is at a low level, very low level, your performance will be at very low level. When your stress is too high, also your performance will come down. Always we tell people that an optimum amount of stress is always good, that enhances your performance. So they'll ask you a question, do you think stress is always bad? Or stress is always bad? Comment. When they ask you about that, you need to write what is the meaning of stress, what is eustress, what is distress, And you need to write the relationship between stress and job performance. Now, stress has got some negative impacts. There's a lot of recent studies. They talk about stress. People feel the effects of stress. The job is very stressful, and 36% feel used up at the end of the workday. 28% work so hard they do not have time or energy to spend with their families. 26% feel emotionally drained by their work. Then people are aware that they may be contributing to their own stress because you are working for more amount of money. You are unwilling to make trade-offs between home and work, and you are not in a position to control how many hours you are working. And we need to understand that stress is costly. Lot of job turnover is because of stress. Accidents that are taking place due to stress. Then companies spend lot of money on medical bills because of the stress people they're undergoing through it. See, all these things show that stress has negative impact. Now, having said all these things, a simple definition: what is a stress? I told you so far, stress is not bad. There's a good stress, there's a bad stress. Then we were discussing, when are you experiencing good stress? The term that we experience the good stress is called eustress, and the term that we experience bad thing is called distress. Then I have shown you where we confront this eustress, where we face the bad stress, what are the consequences, without teaching you the simple meaning of stress. Now, what is the stress? It is a dynamic condition in which an individual is confronted with an opportunity, constraint, or demand related to what is or she desires and for which the outcome is perceived to be both uncertain and important. So it is a condition. All of us are experiencing, there is opportunity, there is a constraint. And when we are working for that, we are not certain about the result, but that result is very important for us. That kind of situation, we call it as stress. Work stress. What are these constraints? Forces that prevent individuals from doing what they desire. I want to do, but there are a lot of constraints. There are several forces, they come in the way. There are certain demands, loss of something desired. Then stress, it is a pattern of emotional state. It is caused by stimuli such as stressors. These stressors are called demands. These stressors could be either physical or psychological in nature. And these stressors, all of us encounter during the course of living. Okay? These things we call them as stressors. Now, what are the stressors all of us we come across? You are about to get your retirement pension, let's say you are fired. You find out that your company is about to eliminate your department, the restructuring process, new things have come, computerization has come, all these things have come, and they tell some of the department, they extend. For example, I think I don't know how many of you have seen, there used to be a machine called Gestner cyclo-styling machine. How many of you have seen that machine? Cyclo-style machine. Anyone has seen? Maybe people who are working in B.R. Ambedkar University, old timers, they know that machine. Cyclo-styling machine. And there used to be one post that is called cyclo-style operator. Now these things are not there. Likewise, there were these companies, they used to own a fleet of vehicles, and with this leasing and all these things, what they have done was they have removed and they have started taking vehicles on lease. With that, the driver's position, likewise, there are various departments, computerization has come, and several departments, I think, they are eliminated. Then that causes stress. Your boss tells you that you will not be getting a raise this year, and somebody at home was diagnosed with illness. All these things are stressors. All these things are stressors. Now, when we talk about the stressors, we talk about acute, episodic, chronic. This side we see short term, and this time long. Many times people, they give this kind of example. I think in one-to-one or offline classes, we people, they do this kind of experiment. They ask you to hold something. And normally the experiments that they do is, I think they'll take a glass of water, they ask you to hold. When you are holding the glass of water, initially, you will not experience stress. When you hold that one too long, there is a possibility for you to experience a sort of stress and strain. Again, I'm giving example of this one. If you use it like mobile phone for the sake of just communication, it's okay. But when you hold too long, or I'm not about what I'm talking, when we hold too long like this, I think I do not know how many of you experience, you are likely to experience slightly a sort of pain on this side. So it's not um, the matter, but how long you hold a particular matter. I think that results in this kind of stress. So we have talked about acute, episodic, and chronic. Acute stressors that bring some form of sudden change that threaten us either physically or psychologically, requiring people to make unwanted adjustment. I think shifts, you are working in shifts. Sometimes you are eating at odd times. All of us know human beings are supposed to eat during maybe daytime and evening. I think I'm told recently, I was reading something. You have to correct me. A crow will not eat, I think, after 7 o'clock or something. Is it correct? Can someone correct me? Yesterday I was reading something about it. Recently there is a movie Balagam, and I did not watch that movie. They're talking about, is it crow? Can someone?
Yes, sir. It is crow.
It won't eat after some time in the evening because it has got a lot of good health habits. But just think about us. There's something called midnight biryani, eating at odd times. And let me tell you, we are working against our nature. We are working against our nature. Of course, I do agree, economic necessity, and that has provided employment to so many people. But these things, they cause acute stresses, sudden kind of changes that they come. Then there are certain stressors we call episodic stressors. The result of experiencing several acute stressors in a short period of time, this is called episodic stressors. These episodic stressors, Some of the example, lack of involvement in making organizational decisions. Sometimes universities, they take decisions. In that one, you are not a party, but you need experience. Likewise, organizations, they do make decisions. Unrelenting, unreasonable expectations for performance. By tomorrow morning, this has to be done. You tell people, sir, anything requires little time. How can you expect me? After all, I'm a human being. I can't do all these things. But your boss does. I do not know what to do. By tomorrow morning, all these things have to be done. Poor communication with workers. You don't have proper communication. You don't talk to each other. Always the dangling sword, fear of losing one's job. Spending long amounts of time away from home. Sometimes I wonder about some of the CEOs. I ask them this question, how many days you go out? When I ask them this question, how many days you go out or visit foreign countries, and they ask me they reply something. Don't ask me, Krishna Kumar, like that. Just ask me, how many days you stay at home? You don't stay at home. Morning 7 o'clock you are going, and night you return around 10 o'clock, 10:30. By the time, I think when you are leaving, your children will be sleeping, and when you are returning, your children, they are sleeping. And we become weekend parents. Some of you might be laughing when I'm talking all these things. But they research. There are a lot of gossips in office, lot of conflict in office, not being paid enough, given one's level of responsibility and performance. Oh, people, they give big titles, big titles. But when you read those titles and when you ask people how much you get, they have to say, don't ask about pay and all these things. Just ask about responsibilities. We are responsible for so many things, but you are not paid. See, all these things are called episodic stresses. Then you have got chronic stress. The most extreme type of stress, constant, unrelenting in nature, and having a long-term effect on the body, mind, and spirit. You have a boss. Oh my God, the way he tortures you. And you've got an abusive relationship. But you have to work with them. And all these things, they result in different kind of health issues over a period of time. People, they complain migraine, all these things. Now, I was speaking about stress. I was speaking about stressors. And under stressors, there are three kinds of things I was discussing. Then as you pass through these things, and I think you go through this work stress, the harmful physical and emotional response that all of us experience on our job because of all these negative stressors which I spoke about. Now, do you think every stress is a stress? Our answer is very simple. Sometimes there are stresses, but the question is, do you consider them as a stress? There's something called cognitive appraisal. A judgment made about the stressfulness of a situation based on the extent to which a person perceives a stressor as threatening or feels he or she capable of coping with its demand. It's perception of the stresses that lead to the stress, not the stressors themselves. Now, I used to ask some of the people who are ham of the affair, how do you feel about this situation? I think I never served principals and CEOs. What to tell? Krishna Kumaru, I think I think back. If I have to hit a sixer, I will hit. And I think they'll be throwing balls on us. And we have to. Some people, they take in a sportive way. For them, it is not a problem. And same thing I'll tell you. Let's say you are watching cricket. Abhiram sir, you watch cricket? Vijay ma'am, do you watch cricket?
Yes, sir.
Acha. With lot of interest?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Last ball. Only one run has to be made. That will decide the fate of the nation. I think I'm from a place where the moment you say a match between two countries, and I think people, they'll be glued to their houses with a lot of interest. They'll be watching. Not only a lot of interest, a lot of stress will be there. And last ball, only one run, that will decide the fate. And from audience, everybody will be talking, come on, sixers, come on. Sixers. And the fellow who is shouting, he doesn't know how to hold the bat. But he's expecting people and a lot of stress. And if somebody is sitting beside them, they'll try to beat them also. I do not know whether they watch. I know, but some people who watch, while watching movies, what they do, when the hero is hitting the villain, these fellows, they'll be hitting people who are sitting beside them. Come on, beat him, come on, beat him. Now, that last ball, you're shouting, sixers, sixers, sixers. How much stress? If the player is having stress, how much stress that person will be having? But the question is, there are some players, there are some players, they are very cool. There are some Mr. Dependable, but there are some people, they are led away by stress. I heard about one name, Mr. Dependable.
Crispy, crunchy.
Is it?
Chips will be crispy.
Yeah. Acha, crispy. I'm talking about. I heard one name about cricketer. He is Mr. Dependable. You heard that kind of name? Cool, chill under all circumstances. But there are some people, they come, they hit six or they'll out and they leave the place. Now, it's not the stress, how you take that stress. That's called cognitive appraisal. That leads. What is flight response? An automatic rapid escape from a dangerous situation. So when you face stress, what is that you do? There are some people that do not want to take risk. They do not want to take risk. They try to totally avoid. Some people, they take, but when really that kind of situation comes, they try to escape. Now, what are the tips for assessing potential stressors? Check with others. Is it really a good stress? Look to the past. Gather all the facts that are relating to that one. Avoid negative mental monologue. Those things will help you. Now, the question is, again, going back. Initially, I spoke, are you experiencing these things? Then you are prone to stress, I said. Then I was talking about don't be under the impression that stress is always bad. There are two kinds of stresses, eustress and distress. And I told when we experience eustress, when we experience distress. Then we were told that don't be under the impression stress is always bad. Optimum level of stress always enhances your performance. Then stress is called by stresses, and I told you, and these I gave you working definition. Then stress is called by stresses, and I told you there are three categories of stresses. Then I'm telling you, it is not the stress, but how you take into consideration the stress, it matters. Now we are seeing when you experience stress, what is your response? The response could be, are you going through this strain? Are you resilient? Or are you going through this burnout? These are the three responses. What is that, your response? Now, what is a strain? When you experience the stress, there are certain reactions. The reaction to the stress, that the deviation from normal states of human functioning results from prolonged exposure to stressful events. They may take the form of psychological, behavioral, physiological adverse reaction, which tend to impair our performance. So when you go through this strain, I think immediately, saying all of us experience, even I have experienced. I was supposed to, somebody said there's something wrong. When they said something wrong, immediately the way I experienced the strain was totally different. Immediately there were a lot of changes in my body and the reactions were different. So the first thing is a strain. Then the second response, do you strain yourself? Or the second response, do you think that you can bounce back? What is your response to your stresses? Are you going to strain yourself? Are you going to bounce back? Or are you going to experience physical, emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, feeling of low personal accomplishment? And this sort of situation, we call it as burnout. When you experience intense and prolonged work-related stress, you go through burnout. And when you go through this burnout, it has adverse impact on your health and also on job performance. I'm told about a king overnight because of stress, this entire jet black hair has become gray hair. You heard about any king whose hair has become gray hair overnight because of stress? Listening? Any response from your side? Even if the answer is no?
No, we haven't heard that yet.
Okay. Now you can search for it, you will get the answer. And you can also see your friends. When they are joined in the job, they have jet black hair. Within very few years, when they go through the stressful job, their hair becomes so gray. The reason is the stressful situation through which they are undergoing. It's a burnout situation. What is your response when you face through these stresses? Do you think everything is a stress, or do you think it is a part of the game and you want to bounce back? Or are you going through this burnout? Now, burnout, stress and psychological adjustment. Burnout is a syndrome of emotional, physical, mental exhaustion coupled with the feelings of low self-esteem or low self-efficacy result from prolonged exposure to intense stress and the strains following from them. Burnout has a strong adverse effect on job performance. The burnout, they can ask you in short notes also. Now, what are the symptoms of burnout that we experience? Physical exhaustion like headaches, nausea, poor sleep, changes in eating habits. Emotional exhaustion like depression, feeling of helplessness. Depersonalization occurs when people become cynic about others, hold negative attitudes. They treat people like doormats, objects. They derogate themselves, their jobs, and life in general. They feel feeling of low personal accomplishment and lack of faith in any positive change in the future. They ask you a question, what do you mean by burnout? What are the examples of burnout? Now, let's discuss what are the major causes of stress in our workplace. What are the major causes of stress in our workplace? The first one, occupational demands. then conflict between work and non-work, then harassment at work, role ambiguity, responsibility for others, and lack of social support. These are some of the things we will try to discuss. Occupational demands. The type of job itself can be more stressful. I know those who are in um, software and hardware and computer, some of these things, Likewise, doctors, you do not know with what kind of ailment that patient will come. You can't say, sorry, I left this question in choice. You heard what I said? When you go to a doctor, will you say, I have left this question in choice? Amma Vijaya?
Yes, sir.
When you go to a doctor,
Yes, sir.
can you expect doctor saying, Mama, I do not know, I have left this question in choice?
No, we
No.
can't say that.
Yeah, yes, they have to diagnose. See, there are some jobs. Let's say you can also visualize the situation. Heavy rains are there. You are with your family. I think you might, if you enjoy non-veg, you are eating biryani with your family members. Or if you are vegetarian, you are having hot sambar food with your family members. But suddenly the power is off. You expect the lineman to do the job in that rain or when the heavy winds are blowing. You want things to be restored, and we are calling to electricity department. I think all of us do that. We want power need to be restored. But the people who are doing this job, they are also human beings. Under these weather conditions, they have to restore things. The occupational demand. There's an occupational stress. Their family members are also worried. You can think about n number of jobs. I'll tell you, if you happen to be a teacher and when you go to class without preparation, what kind of hazard you are going to face? And our job stress, we have to make decisions. You do not know. I know, but some people, whatever decisions they make, people they attack. You have to perform boring and repetitive tasks. You think whatever you are doing, it's a meaningless. I don't know how many of you watched making of a movie. I don't know how many you watched. When they take a dance sequence or fighting sequence, something will be happening and people they'll be doing, and you do not know how things will come. Some people, they say some of these things are boring for them. They do not know the consequences. Likewise, in many places, we are doing some work. I know about some people. I used to buy, we used to have a film, overhead projector films we used to have. I used to buy from Begum Bazaar. When I used to buy, in those days, we were using and showing in the classroom. And that boy who was selling all these things doesn't know what for I use it. So likewise, there are many things that we are doing without understanding our actions, how they are meaningful. So you feel boring. Repeatedly exchanging information with others. Working in unpleasant physical conditions. Let us say you're working in mines. Okay, I'll give. There are certain jobs, they look so glamorous jobs. Let's say, do you think what do you feel about, what do you think about air hostess jobs? People who are flying in the air. My God, whenever they announce turbulence, oh, we'll be praying, oh God, we'll be praying, because when there's a turbulence, when the plane comes down, goes up, we'll be praying. But the people who are working there, working in Navy, working in a submarine, see, unpleasant. I know about a person who is working in Navy and the marine engineer, and his wife happens to be my student. I asked her, how do you feel about his working conditions and about him? And she said, 6 months he's out of home and 6 months he'll be at home. I said, 6 months he'll be at home. You feel so happy. But things are bad. You need to pay 6 months undivided attention to the person. That is something. Like the 6 months is away. That is also you don't like. So there are working in unpleasant conditions, performing unstructured rather than a structured job. All these things they lead to job stress. There's a conflict between work and non-work. And this conflict normally arises after the demands placed on individual who is trying to fulfill more than one role. Then when we talk about work and non-work, two important things we talk about. There's something called role conflict, role juggling. Incompatibilities between various sets of obligations that people they face. It's called role conflict. Then role juggling. I know those, especially ladies. I pity you, and you people are really great. The reason is you take care of your family, and immediately you have to change your role when you are going to office, and your focus has to be something different. Of course, some men may say, sir, we are also like that. I'm not disagreeing with you. But this requires a different role. Sometimes this leads to a lot of stress. Then there is something again known as role ambiguity. You do not know what is your role. And sometimes there are some positions that are given in your organizations and office. What you should do, what you do not know, you are not aware. I think in colleges, some positions are there. If you do something, people they question you. If you don't do also, people they question you. Then there is something known as harassment. So nowadays, we are going through several things. Lot of things can be talked on this subject, but the only thing is one thing I'll leave it. I leave it with this heading. It's a problem that all of us are facing. All of us are facing. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult how people they feel about it. Then overload and underload of work, and this will lead to burnout. Burnout is too many stresses cause an overload, and employees feel overwhelmed by the task they have to perform. Then rust out, too few stresses cause an underload as boredom, monotony take hold. Then information stress, stress that comes from pressure to store and process a great deal of information in one's head and keep constantly gathering the data. All these things, they result in burnout, rust out, and information anxiety. And when you have a responsibility for others, it's a heavy burden. You have to oversee, manage, and evaluate people. Is a major source of stress for managers. I know about Amma Vijay, you must be having mates or people who help you at home.
Yes, sir.
And managing them, don't you think it's a difficult job?
Yes, sir. Very difficult.
Very difficult. Oh,
And even maintaining a driver also very, very difficult task.
Maintaining, then one day when the mate doesn't turn up, and
Yes.
when all the helpers they come at once. Oh, let me tell you, it's a lot of dynamics are there in this one. I think I appreciate ladies. They are very good in managing this kind of HR. You agree with me? A lot of HR is involved in this one. And you have to think, see, we know how to think.
And it is not valued also.
Yeah, I know. People, they ask, what is that you are doing at home?
Yes.
And I think recently somebody made a calculation about homemakers. What is their contribution? Are a lot of things they contribute, lot of things, but often they are questioned. Now, we have seen the stresses that cause, then what are the causes or consequences of the stress? Now, These stress, it will result in medical problems, behavioral problems, and also psychological problems. So these are the consequences. Some people, they'll get ailments like heart disease, strokes, backaches. Oh my God. I know working too long on a computer, different kinds of problems we get. We think others, they are smoking, I'm not smoking, I'm a great man, others are very bad people. But all of us know when you sit too long in your chair, what happens? You agree with me? Somebody told it amounts to smoking. The kind of the result that you get because of smoking, even without smoking, when you sit too long, you feel that. See, I used to observe some of the doctors. Every half an hour, they get up, they walk for a while, for 2 or 3 minutes. Again, they come back and sit in the chair because they have to examine patients. Too many patients will be there. If they sit like that in the chair, they get into doctors will get into medical problems, then ulcers, headaches, cancers. Oh, now I need not talk. Diabetes. It has become, I do not know about this is something. Uh, Liver cirrhosis, lung disease. All these things are caused, medical problems are caused by stress. Then it causes behavioral problems also. You go to smoking, and nowadays, people, they talk about pan parag. And recently, somebody was telling something. So today they are taking alcohol. After some time, that dose is not enough because they are consuming too much. That dose they have to increase. That is resulting horrible problems. And people, they become accident prone. Violence will be there. Appetite disorders. You don't feel like eating. Now, these are behavioral. Then we talk about psychological conflict in families, sleep disturbances. Oh, you ask people that they sleep around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And Hyderabad, it is something different. Uh, all these things because of stress only. Then we go through depression. All these are the consequence of the stress. The negative stress effect of stress at workplaces, stress has impact on task performance, or task performance is disrupted adversely. And we need to understand that stress happens to be a silent killer. And first one is it has impact on our body. And the second thing is it has impact on our family. It has impact on our children. Therefore, we need to pay attention. You must have heard about something called desk rage. Desk rage. I'll tell you, recently in one institution, people, they were going for NBA ranking. Oh, I know they were working for the past, I think, 2 or 3 months, and their stress has gone to such a level. I think there was a lady professor. What she did, she has taken something, I think, thrown just like that, or fist of her anger. Such things, do they happen? Yes, they do happen because they're unable to control their stress levels. So the way you have got road rages, and there is something called desk rage. It is lashing out at others in response to stressful encounters on the job. Oh, the way they abuse people, the way they throw away the files and all these things, they are so terrible. All these things, they are the result of the stress. Now, the question is, how are we going to manage our stress? First one is manage our time. How do we make use of our time? It's more important. And there are fellows like me, I tell you, we used to stay in colleges, in our offices, 2 long hours. And we used to take a lot of pride. But you need to understand a person. I think it is N.R. Naranamurthy Garu who told, by staying long hours, don't think you are proving that you are something great. I think you are not smart enough to manage your time properly. Uh, I appreciate again, ladies. I think they know within the given time how to manage things and leave and go to their home. But there are men. I am not against men. Do not be under the impression. But we should know how to manage time so wisely. Don't think I appreciate only females like that. It could be men or women. We should know how to manage our time. The second thing that we talk about is the type of food that we consume and be physically fit. Nowadays, one of the important topics is physical intelligence. Kindly go through it. When you get little, not too much, little literature on that one that will help you. Eat a healthy diet and be physically fit. And meditation, relaxation is essential. And there is, I think among Jews, they have a practice. On seventh day, they will not work. For them, 7th Saturday, they won't work. They spend in the house of God and meditation, these things they do. And you need to take rest. So rest is essential. Then good night sleep is essential. There are several initiatives we need to take, we need to practice. Sometimes avoid inappropriate self-talk. I'm using the word inappropriate self-talk. Try to have a positive self-talk. Let me tell you one more thing. There are many people who could overcome their mental problems because of positive self-talk. Then take a time out. Go out with your family. Emotional intelligence, try to practice, try to understand your emotions, your surroundings, other emotions, and how to deal with those things. Try to manage your emotions in an intelligent way. Try to be emotional and also intelligent, and try to manage your emotions in an intelligent way. There's a lot of things we can talk about. Emotional intelligence help you in defeating adverse effect of this stress. Thank you so much. I think it's 11:58. Because 11:58, I had to be close it. Otherwise, I could have taken that emotional intelligence, other things. Thanks so much. There's a lot of things. I don't mind sharing. I'll be sharing this one with you people. And it's an exhaustive presentation I have. I can share it with you. I wanted to see. Oh, okay. As I told you, if you really feel like having a copy of what I'm trying to share, you can write it to me. Okay. Okay, I know they will share it with you, Vishwanath Garu. They'll share it with you, that 5th unit. And thank you so much. It's 11:59. You need to get into other, I don't know, other sites. They call it other links. Okay, thank you so much. I can talk 1 more hour, but I thought essential things I need to teach. Therefore, I have done it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.